ProfitTree, we have two different tracking tools. We have a listing tracker and a shop tracker tool. In this video, we're going to talk about listing tracking and what it does for your shop. So first and foremost, when you're doing product research on Product Finder or on Etsy Radar, you can track any of the listings that you find. So there's this little button here that you can click and you can add it to one of your collections or folders inside of your listing tracker. So for example, I typed in the keyword dog shirts here. Now, if I wanted to create a similar version of this shirt here, I would go ahead and add it to a folder. In this case, the folder I made is called Product Priority List. So I just added it to my product priority list. And when I go into my listing tracking, you can see that I have different collections or folders of all of the different listings that I want to track. Now, I like to have a folder dedicated to a product priority list because this is where all of my brain dumping ideas live. This serves as my product priority list. The listings that have the most sales are going to be given the highest priority for me to make them in my pipeline of listings. So you can see this is a custom dad photo shirt. So I would go and recreate this listing, and then I would go ahead and move this into its own dedicated product folder. So I'm going to create a new collection, which would be custom dad photo shirt, and I'm going to save it in that new folder. So you can see it just got put into its own dedicated folder. Now that I have my direct competitor that I'm competing against for the same sales from the same customers, I'm going to go ahead and add my listing. So I would go ahead and find my listing. Now, obviously this is just for an example here, but I would go ahead and find my direct competing listing, and I would go ahead and add that into my custom dad photo shirt folder so I could track my listing directly against my competition. Now, this is extremely valuable because you are going to want to see how your listing is competing against your top competition. So you can see here, this is our listing competing against all of these other pillow insert listings. And what you want to see is, are we actually making the same monthly sales as our direct competitors in a similar amount of time? And so we see a lot of really great stats here, like their sales trend and how it's doing against ours, their total sales, but obviously the most important is their monthly sales, right? If this listing is making 130 sales a month and ours is only making about 36, then we need to figure out why. What are they doing different than ours? So if we look at this listing, we can see that they have a average order value of $62, whereas our average order value is only $24. So Etsy is obviously going to prioritize listings that have historically people spend more money on. So if you have two listings competing for the same click, but one listing historically makes $62 per sale and another listing only makes $24 per sale, well, we have to ask, well, why? What is the gap there? Why are they making more money than us historically than our listing? So when we click on the listing, we can even view it on Etsy. What we find is that they have way more variation options than us. When you offer more variation, this means that people are able to buy more than one thing off of one listing. So if they offer sizes that we don't offer, right? Someone that would buy off our listing, if they can't find all the sizes that they want, they're going to go to a different listing. So this listing is probably historically selling way more units just because of the optionality that they have, even though their photos are actually way worse than us. So as a business, if we wanted to compete, the lowest hanging fruit for us to increase our sales is by adding more variation options. Other things that you're going to want to look at is the imagery. What are they doing in that main image? Now we also want to look at conversion rate. So in this case, their conversion rate is higher. So we know that the reason that this listing is winning is because they have more variation options. But in the case that we actually offered the same type of variation options, conversion rate would play a really big role, because if it wasn't the variation options, then there has to be another reason that historically people are buying more off of this listing than on ours, or a higher percentage of people are buying compared to us. So if it wasn't our variation options, because we both have the same amount of variation, then that means there's something in the listing that they're actually doing. So this would come down to quality, this would come down to price, this would also come down to imagery. And this is how you analyze your competition to better your listing, because if it wasn't variation option, then do they have a video? Do they have better images? Which we know they don't have a better image, so it's obviously not that. But if we had the same variation options and they did have better images, that could mean that we need to update or test out new imagery. The data simply doesn't lie. If somebody is beating you for the same product that you are selling, there has to be a reason, and this is where you're going to find out those answers. We recommend that when you start launching from your product priority list, you create a folder for each design that you have against 3, 4, or 5, or as many direct competitors as you can. And ideally, you're looking for people that are making more monthly sales in the last 30 days, because those are the North Star listings that you're going to want to follow to try to emulate, to make sure that you're beating them on all the competitive angles. If you guys have any questions, remember we have our customer support here. We are online every day, Monday through Friday. Enjoy, guys.